morning, and thank you, the organizer, once again for having me here. No slides. This time it's just paper. Last year, I stand before the audience, probably some of you, speaking about the Malaysia digital economy blueprint and what are some of the strategies and initiatives related to data centers and cloud infrastructure that are part of the blueprint and which is meant to drive digital transformation in Malaysia. Now, if you are wondering between then and now, there was a change in government, right? We had an election, there was a change. I get this question all the time, so I better lay it up front. So there were some questions about whether there's a change in policy, whether the blueprint is still relevant. I can tell you this, the current government actually decided to carry on, right? Decided to carry on with both the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint as well as the National 4R policy. So some adjustments will be made. For example, implementation timelines, reprioritizing some certain focus areas. So an exercise is currently underway to review the progress of what we did in the last 2 years. That's the phase one of the blueprint, and a series of engagements with the various ministries and agencies is currently underway to look at implementation issues, to adjust some of the targets. But nevertheless, the ambition remains the same. Now, back to data centers and cloud infrastructures. I don't have to tell you, they are the key in driving digital transformation. You already know that. Well, as the digital economy grows, so does the amount of data we need to process. Well, they grow exponentially, and it's estimated that 1.145 trillion megabytes of data was created every day in 2002. However, we know that data centers consume a lot of energy from running the servers, cooling them, the inverters, the security system, and whatnot. So by some estimates, they consume about 2% of the electricity worldwide in 2020 to keep, the data centers cool. This accounted for 2% of the world total greenhouse gas emissions. Well, God knows the amount of water we need to cool the systems down. It is estimated that data storage and transmission in and from data centers could rise to as high as 13% of the world's electricity by 2030. Of course, now with enterprises coming in with net zero commitments, data centers are also now in the race to be green. Okay, so implication for Malaysia. Recently, I think the first couple of months, we saw a slew of data centers and data region announcement involving Malaysia. In fact, the Digital Investment Office, that's a collaborative platform between MDEC and MyDigital, reported a figure of 80 billion in terms of 80 billion ringgit in terms of digital investments last year. It actually overshot our KPI. Our KPI was only 70 billion by 2025. So in 1 year, they overshot the KPI. And roughly, actually 73 billion of that amount comes from investment in data centers and also cloud infrastructures, okay? So we hear reports that Malaysia is, now emerging as a leader. We take up in 2022, and it will continue to do so. The question is, when the time comes, right, will we be able to meet the energy demands? Of course, I believe agencies like MDEC, have produced guidelines on the establishments of data centers and the green requirements that comes with it. Now, yesterday, let me sidetrack a bit. Yesterday, the Malaysia Center for 4IR was launched. There are 19 such centers all over the world, including Malaysia, set up in partnership between the World Economic Forum and host governments. Okay, according to the forum, there will be a maximum number of 25. So we were lucky; we hit 19 out of 25. So we managed to get in. It's a network of centers that is put up together to bring together stakeholders to identify the impacts of technologies, co-design innovative governance protocols and policy frameworks, and pilot them with partners around the world. So we are lucky to be one of them. We feel quite honored. This is how it works. Governments and partners of the C4IR network, the 19 of them, can quickly establish innovation ecosystem, bringing together entrepreneurs, startups, MNCs, academics, and government to, number one, identify game-changing impacts of emerging technologies, co-design innovative governance protocols and policy framework, and openly collaborate in real-life environment. So when we talk about institutions in Malaysia, usually the mindset is, oh, it has got to be, when you talk about creating institutions, it has got to be a big setup. It has got to be a lot of people, not with this center. This center, actually, we only have very minimal staffing because it's a collaborative center. It's just a platform. So if the private sector decides now to work with the government and together with WEF, then of course the resources in terms of people working on the project has to come from the various partners. So it's a collaborative kind of working arrangement. So different centers in the world, different such centers in the world, they look at different areas of technology and usually 2 or 3 thematic areas. For example, in Colombia, they look at data marketplace. They look at, AI ethics. In Norway, they look at oceans data platform. In Rwanda, they look at chatbot technologies in healthcare and national data policies. In UAE, again, AI ethics framework and precision medicines. And the latest before Malaysia was in Telangana, India. Actually, it's the second center in India. India has 2 centers. That center actually look at life sciences, health-related issues. In Malaysia, we are looking at 2 areas as well. We start with 2 areas. We'll probably, venture beyond that. Energy transition and also digital transformation. Okay? So that brings back, the topic of data centers, because it nicely fits between the intersection of digital transformation and also energy transition. So I do see, potential areas, and I invite, the private sector, enterprises, to think about this and how to collaborate with the center in the future. There are 3, and also tap the expertise of the subject matter experts worldwide in the 18 centers, because that's what they do. It's not just in Malaysia, but whenever we find a problem to be solved in Malaysia, we have we can leverage on the knowledge that has been built in other centers and tap the knowledge, and even sometimes can borrow their subject matter experts. And in Malaysia, of course, our private sector partners who are involved in these projects will be center fellows. So they too can be, their expertise too can be tapped by the other centers. They'll be recognized as the Center for IR Network Fellows. Okay, so the 3 areas I can quickly think of last night is actually to look at ways to accelerate investments in clean and renewable energy to power data centers. Okay, in fact, the work of the forum through our center in Malaysia even before the establishment, we have started to look at this. Of course, it's not just limited to data centers, but we're looking at how to mobilize investment in clean energies. In fact, last week was the second series of workshop done by WF together with stakeholders in Malaysia. It's done virtually with Petronas and various energy players. Number two, policy and regulation, probably to identify policy and regulatory frameworks that can support the adoption of energy-efficient technologies and practices in data centers, such as probably fiscal or tax incentives, carbon pricing, and energy, efficiency standards. Finally, collaborating with the industry stakeholders, including data center operators, equipment manufacturers, and energy providers to develop and implement energy-efficient solutions to data centers. So with that, I leave something for you all to think about and how to collaborate with the center. And thank you very much for your attention.
All right, thank you very much. Fabian Bigar, the Chief Executive Officer for MyDigital Corporation, and of course for you to give us a clearer picture on the driving digital.